بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله العظيم الخبير المتعالي. الحمد لله الذي لا تعجبه ظلمات الليالي. الحمد لله الذي أرسل جبال العوالي. سبحانه من إله عظيم يغفر الذنوب ولا يبالي. لا إله إلا الله بها نحيا وبها نموت وبها نلقى الله وبها نوالي. وأشهد أن عظيمنا وقدوتنا ومولانا قرة عيني محمد ابن عبد الله عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله. أرسله كافة للناس بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. فبلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة فكشف الله به الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين. فصلوات الله وسلامه عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. أما بعد. Ladies and gents, brethren and sisters, friends and colleagues, can everyone hear me? You all look very stressed. Is everything okay? So one of the challenges of our times is the challenge of families. Just a question before I start. Who here, and I know this is an awkward question for some and even more awkward for others, who here has a family, like as in wife, husband, kids, that type of thing? MashaAllah. So for some I will be here on time, and for others they've probably missed the boat and will scratch their heads, but it'll be okay inshallah ta'ala. We believe that Allah Rabbul Izzah will answer du'as regardless, so inshallah ta'ala you can look at it through that lens. One of the greatest gifts of Allah Rabbul Izzah is the gift of offsprings, the gift of children, progeny, family. Allah Rabbul Izzah says, Al-malu wal-banuna zinatul hayati dunya. Wealth, progeny are the beauty of this life. And if you really want to see it in action, see a house in which there is no children. Dull, quiet, somber, boring. And then a child comes into that house. It's as though the light has been switched on. There's laughter, there's joy, there's cries, there's cuddles, do you understand me? It's the beauty of life. And that is for life. And in the akhirah, the same child that was the beauty of your life here, the hadith sahih, the Prophet ﷺ informs us that when the Son of Man dies, as in life ends, all his deeds stop, except for three. And one of the three, وَلَدًا صَالِحًا يَدْعُو لَهُ, a righteous offspring who will make dua for you. So they are your joy and happiness and delight and decoration of your lives in this world, and the possibility of being your salvation in the akhirah. And in between that will come old age and the rest of the challenges that await for us, and they can be the staff on which you lean in your old age as well. So this is the good side of it. Yet the same beauty and the same decoration and the same delight and the same bonus in the akhirah is also a huge test. قال تعالى إنما أموالكم وأولادكم فتنة. Your wealth and your progeny are a test for you. And I tell you this, there's no test like the test of children. You know why? You see, you have a heart, the way the Lord made it, Jalla Subhanahu. Your heart's inside your chest. To protect it, He put a skeletal system around it, so your ribs protected. To protect it further, He put muscle there, and to cover the muscle with, skin and flesh and the rest of it. All that to protect your heart. But your children are your hearts, yet without any protection and outside the body. Your hearts with a mind of their own. Good luck. I have seen parents lose weight because of the challenges they are suffering with their children. I have seen parents fall ill because of the challenges of their children. Because it's a tough one. That's why Allah Rabbul Izzah says it's a test. But if you do it right, if you succeed in the test, bliss. And if you don't, here's the next problem. In our country, I'm from Australia. Life expectancy currently is 82 to 85 years. 82 and a half, let's do that, So that child will live for 82 years. You know what that means? 82 years of problems. That's serious. Because look at it here, Alex. Sheikh, I'm not giving a happy talk. I told you, speak first because they'll be asleep by the time you come. But, so, 82 years. So when the child grows up, goes to school, if he hasn't been brought up right, you will cry. When he gets suspended, you will cry. When he gets terminated from school, you will cry. When he fails in his subjects, you will cry. When he has bad friends, you will cry. When he goes clubbing and club. So at the mom and dad part, and I see young brothers and sisters here who, that will be the next stage of their lives, getting married, having a family. It is important that you choose wisely. Because a bad choice is problematic. And bidalil, with evidence, so you don't think, Ustadh has come here giving a lot of ideas, So even when it was a prophet of God, Nuh alayhi salam, his wife was a non-Muslim, the children became astray. أضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما فلم يغنيا عنهما من الله شيئا. Misguided wife, as in one of the spouses, misguided, disbeliever, betrayed the prophet of the time. And you know the story of the son of Nuh. So he says, come with us, get on the boat or on the, whatever was built. And he says, I will go to the mountain. The wave came and swallowed him. Do you see, even though one was a prophet, but because there's a chain is as strong as its weakest link, because there's a shortcoming there, the possibility of that door opening always remains. So choosing the right husband and choosing the right wife is very important. And in that, because we live in the age of Snapchat and Instagram and all of that, there is a tendency to go focus on the physical, and nothing wrong with it. No one will tell you go marry someone you don't like, hasha lillah. But when you're choosing characteristics, at the top of your list needs to be the religious inclination of the individual. Their love and their devotion to Allah and to the Deen. And the rest needs, like if it's a requirement for you that the person needs to be like this or like this, that's your business, Allah Rabbul Izzah bless it. But never sacrifice the Deen for the others. If, for example, you're looking for an individual who should, look like this and be from this type of family and have this type of degree, alhamdulillah, Allah bless it. But if you find that individual and they don't have the faith, that should be a game breaker. But if you find the faith and then there's shortcomings and the other things that you want, you can look into that. Let's be polite. You can look into that. So look, when you're selecting, not just for the thickness of the lips and the thinness of the nose and the curliness of the whatever else that you're looking for, part of it should be, this is gonna be the father of my Fatima, and this is gonna be the mother of my Muhammad, and what values do they have to bring to the table? What will they teach my son? What will they teach my daughter? Am I going to have problems in this, or do we see eye to eye? Do we have a similar vision? Do you understand? Do we have the similar outlook? Those things are important, and by that I mean in reference to Deen, because that's the game changer for us. And I can't emphasize this enough. The mom and dad, and in particular the mom, decide the future of the whole child. Research shows that 80% of a child's personality becomes fixed in the first 5 years of life. Who makes that? There's no school at that time, and if you send him to school, you're doing something wrong. There's no school. That's you with the mom and the dad, and you are their heroes. You are the one who prays, and he and she comes and imitates with their little nappies and stick their little bottoms up and do the salah with you. You're the ones they imitate. You're the ones, you walk a certain way, watch, they walk like that. Talk a certain way, watch, they'll talk like that. Because they follow, they imitate, and therefore what role models you provide for them, you decide their future. I cite these examples. It's the mom and dad that set, listen to this, that set the projectile of the child. A lot of engineers, I'm hoping here, you projectile, so you kind of set the angle and the amount of energy that you're going to shoot this at that angle, and based on that you can calculate where it's going to land, right? So you're setting its projectile, where it's going to go. You set that. Alexander the Great. What made Alexander the Great great? He was just Alexander. The mom was a whole new thing. This mom, when I read history, so she used to tell him at a young age, Alexander, you're the son of Zeus. The god of gods of Greek mythology. So the child grew up every moment feeling, this is mortals and I am the real deal. That's why the world wasn't enough for him. He conquered. One of the biggest conquerors in human history is Alexander the Great. Because the rest of you were mortals, and in his head he was a god. And I don't encourage you sisters to teach your children this, because we're obviously Muslims and that's not our philosophy. My point is, she instilled that indomitable spirit in him, and that bigger than life personality in him, and that self-efficacy and self-belief and self-worth and self-determination. She did it. Otherwise history wouldn't have even known an Alexander. And forget about that, come to our time, into the Muslim world, into the Islamic history. Who made Imam Malik Imam Malik? The Imam initially wanted to be a musician. You know that? Imam Malik, he's a very good looking kid, Imam Malik. His father was somewhat paralyzed, so he was limited physically. So he could only make arrows, as a means of living. And although there was knowledge in the in the, you know, in the ancestors, but for work, for financial means, that's what he used to do. So Malik came to his mom and said, I want to be a singer, I want to be a musician. And had she let him, like had she not intervened or mismanaged it, or had she been a lesser of a person, you wouldn't have known an Imam Malik. So she thinks, I think about this, you know, her wisdom dazzles me. So she thinks, how am I going to get the child from this projectile to this projectile? Because it could have just as well been tap, you know, haram alayk eda, you know, who told you to do this? But instead, he goes, she says, you know, Malik, musicians have to be good looking. And their careers are very short. That's it. I know some of my sisters went, oh my God, did she really say that? Yeah, she said that. But point is to instill doubt and give an alternate. And then what she used to do, she used to buy him the clothes of the sheikhs, you know, the turbans and the scarves and the bisht and the oud and all of these things. So young Malik used to wear this and feel sheikh, you know, to feel like a scholar. And then she used to sit him on the sofra and give him the due respect like he's a sheikh, you know, and ask him things that he would know in a way that you need to tell me because I don't know. So for example, Malik, how many rak'ah is Zuhr Salah? So Malik used to say 4 rak'ah. So she changed his projectile until the desire and passion for Deen set in, and then Malik is chasing it himself. And you see the stories of Imam Malik rahimahullah, but do you see the mom did that? And just for some of the sisters, because this is the reality of our lives these days, families break apart, divorces take place. Imam Shafi'i's mother, and I think this is the popular madhab in this country, and Allah bless it, Ya Rab. But Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, a single mom brought him up. Single mom brought him up, and not only brought him up, designed his whole curriculum for him. You know, you will study this with this sheikh, and then go to Muwatta with Malik, and then go learn Arabic in that place, and then you, and she made, and Allah Jalla Subhanahu blessed the Shafi'i with what they say about him, rahimahullah ta'ala. He was too young to fast. Like, fasting hadn't become compulsory upon him. So in Ramadan, he used to sit, eat dates, and give fatwa on fasting. You know, people used to come question, he used to eat dates because the fasting wasn't compulsory upon him. He used to tell others, fast like this, and this breaks it, this doesn't break it, like that. But the person, do you see the effect that a righteous mother and a righteous father have on the child is very early on. Can I also digress a little bit more? Guys, this is a very big topic, so I go a few meters and then I see a door here, then I have to open it because, to do justice, or try to do justice to it. So because we established the point that religious consciousness, goodness of conduct, the link with Allah should be your primary goal. But I am cognizant that sometimes another set of problem happens, like because there's universities and schools and the internet and all of that. A sister will meet a brother, or a brother will meet a sister, and they're both good people, religiously inclined, good hearts, good. But one is from one country and another's from another country, or one's from one culture, or one's from one village, because you get that too, and the other one's from another village, and no, we don't do that, do you understand? But the focus should be the values that Allah and His Prophet have set. Like, I will give a story just to start, because I'm cognizant that your university students, a fair few of you, and then it's important that you have evidence. So I'll give you evidence. So you know the story of Musa alayhi salam? Yeah. Musa alayhi salam is from Egypt. So he leaves Egypt because of what happened. He punched a man, the man died, so Musa alayhi salam leaves, and he comes to another country called Madian. And when he came to Madian, notice he's an immigrant. For your references, so that you understand modern language. He's an immigrant to another country. His family, tribe, all that is there, and he's come to a new country. And a fugitive at that, because the Pharaoh's chasing him. So he comes to the water place of Madian, and he sees people are watering their flock. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمُ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ, and two girls on the other side standing aloft, afar. So Musa alayhi salam looks, and he gets up, goes, and he says, مَا خَطْبُكُمَا, what's your story? Like, why are you standing here? So they said, listen carefully, they said, we will not take our sheep to drink water until the shepherds have gone. وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ, and our father is an elderly man. Very quickly, a few things established. Number one, the character is good enough, like at a level where they don't want to go and rub shoulders with other men, to push around. No, it doesn't suit us. We'll stand here, we'll wait for them to finish, then we'll go. And the reason we are forced to this situation is there's an elderly father and we don't have anyone else. Necessity has brought us here. In a very short sentence, very important things communicate. So Musa alayhi salam goes, takes the sheep from them, gives them water, gives the sheep back, comes, sits under the shade, and makes this dua. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khayrin faqir. Oh Allah, whatever good you can bring to me, I am in need of it. And reference dua. Like, he's just seen two sisters, so oh ya Rabbi, any khair come. And when the prophets make dua, there's a lot of haya in the du'as of the prophets. So even you saw Yaqub alayhi salam, Ayub alayhi salam, the one who was suffering for many, many years. He doesn't say, oh Allah, cure this from me. His dua is with a lot of haya from his Lord. And in it is, Rabbi anni massani yadurru wa anta arhamur rahim. Oh Allah, evil has befallen me and you are the most merciful. Just to get the point, the idea across, I am in need, Ya Rabbi. So Musa alayhi salam makes this dua. The two girls go home early. The father goes, how are you here early? So they go, there was a young man, gave water to our sheep, camp early. Guys, there's a couple of ways of doing this, so I can stop at each point or just finish the story and then come back. I'll stop at each point, I think. Which one do you want, Habib? You tell me. Stop. Khalas. Point number one. Be parents whose children can confide in you. Like your children don't need to hold secrets from you. Like you have failed as a parent if your son or daughter have to keep secrets from you. Like it's done. And you've done that. If when the child comes, I broke this, and you chuck a tantrum and hit the roof and go crazy because a glass broke, so khalas, when a bigger thing happens, dad overreacts. Listen, let's not tell that. If you didn't care as a mom and were not, understanding and not intelligent enough to deal with it, they make the decision very quickly that, Miskeen mom's got enough on her plate, she can't deal with this. Me and my best friend will deal with it. So number one, make sure that that gate is always open. And irrespective of what happens, don't make this colossal mistake of closing that gate. Overreacting, being unreasonable, being someone that the child cannot come to, not fostering those relationships, because otherwise they will solve their big problems with their little heads themselves. And that doesn't end up well just by definition. So that's the first one. Second, be wise enough to see beyond the words. Like, I am sure she hasn't come and said, Dad, there's a guy I really like. I don't think that's happened. But when she's praising, there was a good guy, helped us out. The father picked up that there's an inclination in the heart of my daughter towards this. And a lot of times, and alhamdulillah, our sisters are wonderful people, shy, bashful, modest. They will go home and give a hint. And, the mom's busy cooking and dad's fixing the car, let's say that, or watching soccer, or good, khalas, move on. And the hint falls, or they've even heard it and registered it and no one action it. And it puts the poor child in difficulty after difficulty simply because Allah has blessed them with parents who don't have the wisdom of dealing with situations. If you realize and recognize that you don't have that wisdom, find someone who does. There'll be an elderly uncle, this, that, and say, listen, what do you suggest? So, the wisdom to see that there's an inclination, or my daughter wants this, or my son wants this, instead of bringing up the walls of fear and but he's a foreigner, he's from another country, did he look like our people? No, he didn't. So how do you think this is possible? Next point, I forget my numbers. So next point is having the courage to take action and investigate. Because look at his proactiveness. He goes, go call him on a first meeting, but he's seen signs that he's a person of goodness. He hasn't done anything indecent, come and helped, lifted back, gone back and sat, and that's it. It's a good heart. He's got the other competencies, he's strong, he's honest. So what else do I want? So go call him. So the Qur'an says, فَجَاءَتْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ, one of them can تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتَحْيَا, walking on modesty. If modesty was a cloud, she was riding this cloud, but modest. And here's another point, since we are talking about this. She is a person whose character is established by verses. They're not mingling with men. Second, when she's coming to talk, as necessity, she has to talk. She is an embodiment of haya, haya, modesty. And there's a formula here. Musa alayhi salam is about to become the prophet of God and of the ulul azmi min al-rusul. And at his time, he is probably the closest of Allah's slaves to Allah Rabbul Izzah. Like achievement-wise, he's at the pinnacle. And yet, he's in Egypt. But Allah brings him through so that he could get married, and part of the other things, to get married to this girl because of the goodness of her character. So if you want good, be good. Do you understand? If you want good, be good. الطيبات للطيب. So good will come to the good. And I recognize there will be exceptions to the rule, and sometimes you end up with a messy person and you go, I've been good all my life, what's this? Allah Rabbul Izzah bliss, and but point is generally, as a general formula, this is what works. So Allah Rabbul Izzah brought Musa alayhi salam. here. And the father calls him, the girl comes, modest. Come, my father wishes to reward you, compensate you for the favor you have done for us. So Musa alayhi salam, and the scholars of the commentary of the Qur'an give beautiful details in these things. Parts of it is Musa alayhi salam didn't want to walk behind her, so that his eyes might not fall on her. So he goes, I will walk ahead, tell me which way to turn. So he walked, reached the house of the family, and the man's name is Shu'aib, and it's not the Prophet Shu'aib, it's another Shu'aib al-Rajih. So the man says, tell me your story. So Musa alayhi salam gave the story. This is what you call getting to know the guy. See, the father takes that step, let me see the person. And although there are certain question marks, he's just punched the person and killed them. So, but overall, he's good. You understand? So he says, Allah has najawta min al-qawm al-zalimin. You have been saved from an oppressive people. And then the girl says, my father, ya abat ista'jir, inna khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyyu al-amin, or la-qawiyyu al-amin. Dad, hire him. The best person you can hire is a strong and honest person. Like, again, do you see, had you had the wisdom, there's an inclination, there's things that in him that she likes. So the father doesn't waste any time, and how many opportunities get wasted in these times? Because inni uridu, I want to marry you, one of my daughters. First meeting, and notice this other calamity, the father of the girl proposes. Ya lal-aar wa shinar in our times. What happened? But religiously fine and noble, because he has seen someone of quality, character, conduct. What's the sense in waiting for it to go, or say, nah, I'm not going to do this till he proposes, and who does he think he is? Habib, if the person's good, khalas, go, done, So he says, I want to marry you, one of my daughters, on the condition that you serve, as in help us out for 8 years, and if you do 10, it is a goodness from you. So Musa alayhi salam says, this is a deal with us, no blame on me if I do 8 or 10 years. And subhanAllah, the Rasul, our Prophet asked Jibreel, how many years did Musa do? Like, was it 8? And he goes, no, he completed the 10. Lessons, that it is okay religiously for a girl's side to propose to a guy's side. No ishkal. It is okay to marry across cultures. It's not a problem. It is. I'm happy to answer questions. But the next thing, and at the same time, it is okay for a girl's side for a boy's side to ask a girl's side. It's not again. This is the norm that happens. Or for a mutual friend to get people together and say, listen, this family is good, and all of that is fine. But the purpose and the murad is to find a righteous, decent person. So with Musa alayhi salam, a foreigner, fugitive in another land, has come, yet this person has, the goodness and the decency and the wisdom to get his daughter married to one who will become the Prophet of Allah. So may Allah Rabbul Izzah bless one and all. And to the families who have young, people who are in the age of getting married, please listen carefully. Like, listen to your children. See what it is that the hearts are saying. And if there's khayr, and at least study the prospects. No harm in that, in seeing the person or seeing the girl. And it might be a very good find, and you've pushed it off because you're too nervous, you're too shy, you're too scared, too insecure, too worried. What will it be like, and where do I sit, and what if they don't open the door? You know, all those things that don't go through the hair. So khalas, inshallah ta'ala, follow the story of Musa alayhi salam, and my Allah Rabbul Izzah bless one and all. Do you guys want to take a break, or you want me to continue? You all want to stand up for a second, because I don't like it when people get a bit more. Just let's stand up, refresh it. So just stretch, maybe hug the brother next to you or something, whatever makes. How long do I have time? No, how much? Alright, I'm going to go for 5-10 more minutes. Or maybe a few more. We'll see how it goes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a seat. Alright, so in our story, in our narrative, where we are is, inshallah ta'ala, you've had the good intention, you've made your dua, you've found the right person, Allah Rabbul Izzah has brought you together in His Deen, and now a family is going to start. So a few ideas of what you're aiming to have in your children. Important things. The first one, like the first characteristic, competency, goal you want in a child is imaan. Listen carefully, yeah? Iman is what brings success in all spheres of life. بدليل قد أفلح المؤمنون. Believers are indeed successful. So a heart that is full of faith is very different to a heart which is faithless. You put a heart which has faith in difficulty, it responds very different to the heart that has no faith in difficulty. You know, the global financial crisis happened. I read millionaires had committed suicide. And hasha lillah, I'm not one to judge, like an Allah not test, ya Rab. But point is, simply because they cannot keep up their old lifestyles, you know, so that, and yet we have people living under bridges. Do you understand? So a heart with faith, a heart with iman, copes well in situations where a faithless heart falls apart in. The best thing you can give your children intrinsically is a heart filled with iman. So everyone else lives afraid of sickness, afraid of outbreaks, afraid of mortgages not happening, afraid of failure, afraid of this. And a heart with iman is reliant, resilient on its Lord, that Allah is with me. And look at history and see what people whose hearts were filled with iman were able to do, as opposed to those that didn't have faith. Like, I can go example after example after example. Here, I'll give you a classic one. So, you know of the battle called the Battle of Khandaq. Ahzab, Khandaq. So in Medina al-Munawwara, there's 1,400 able men who can fight, pick up arms, take up arms. 1,400. And yet an army is coming against them, 10,000 plus. Odds phenomenal. To help you see it, because it's important for me that you see it. Just imagine you go to a dark alley, there's one of you surrounded by 10 people. You know? And they have knives and this and that. You know, your knees will buckle. Like, what am I supposed? So odds like that, for each one there's more than 10. then to make matters worse, news comes to the believers that listen, they're coming in 10 days time. So thinking what to do, they decided they're going to dig a trench 5 meters wide, 4 meters deep, 9 to 11 kilometers long. And with the kids digging, there's 3,000 of them altogether. Have you tried digging a swimming pool in the backyard? Now serious, when I teach Seerah, I want to have a few shovels and listen, Habibi, dig. You know, because stories are cheap. You hear, you dig a little hole, you'll be tired, your hands will blister, you'll go home, says, listen, wife, tomorrow call in sick, no one's going to work. I dug a little hole, Now they're digging, you've got nice tools, modern tools, 2019, they're digging with what they're digging, and armies coming, not to have coffee with them for their annihilation. And the fear is real. إِذْ جَاءُوكُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِكُمْ وَمِنْ أَسْفَلَ مِنْكُمْ وَإِذْ زَاغَتِ الْأَبْصَارُ وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرَ. Remember when they came to attack you from your front and behind, and when your hearts were beating at your throats and your eyes grew wide and panic, difficult times. And you would have expected them to fall apart. But and technologically doing the same 11 kilometers with 4 meters wide and 5 meters, today machinery will find it difficult to do. They did it with their hands and the shovels and and the morale amidst them is like this. So you hear people chanting, Allahumma la aisha illa aishul akhirah faghfir Allahumma lil ansari wal muhajira. Oh Allah, there's no joy but the joy of akhirah. Have mercy on the ansar and on the muhajirs. Allahumma lawla anta mahtadayna wala tasaddaqna wala sallayna fa anzil Allahumma as-sakinatan alayna wa thabbit aqdamana illa qayna. Oh Allah, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have believed, we wouldn't know salah and we wouldn't know zakah, so make our feet firm when we meet our enemies. They're chanting through the ranks like this, like at a time where they should be depressed. So what's the competency? And the hadith and the verse and the poem says it itself. It is all things that they believe in, the akhirah and Allah and salah, and do you see these are all tokens of iman, and it is the iman that gets them through these difficulties. So arm your children with iman so that they have a Lord to rely on, and that will give them resilience and stamina to face up to the challenges of the world. Iman. And people with iman do better than those that lack faith. That's fair enough, or you want another example? Well, we'll stop there with that one, inshallah. So the first one is iman. Teach you to give your children iman. The second and third one, the order won't be the same. You can change the order if you want. I give you that freedom, But the second one, and I'll just take it to Sheikh on the before here, so I'll just say that one now. Anas ibn Malik served the Rasul for 10 years. And he says in 10 years he never told me, why did you do this and why didn't you do that? Never scolded me once like that. What you need to take from that is children need a safe environment in which to make mistakes. Don't encourage the mistakes, but as in a safe environment where they can grow, where they can try, where they grow this ability that mistakes is not a problem, like I will learn from it and move on. If I try making this machine like this, it doesn't work, I will try another way. If you kill that in a child, you kill progress of a nation. So create a very safe, loving environment, but one that has morals and values that will move forward. and I will end with this next one, inshallah ta'ala, because it's been a bit long. Lastly, you want your children to become thinkers, and preferably high order thinkers. Does that make sense to everyone? Should I explain? So thinking has different levels. If you go, for example, there's this concept called Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom came up with 6 different levels, if you like, 5, 6 different levels of that education happens in. So at the bottom of that, at the entry level, it's what we call memorization or recall. So for example, memorizing the Qur'an, recall. Or memorizing timetables, recall. Or memorizing a poem, recall. Entry level of knowledge. The sad thing is that in our times and in our realities, memorization has become the goal. You know, teachers push their kids to memorize without taking it any further. Scholars push the kids to memorize, and once the kid's done his hifz, so khalas, we put the turban or put the clothes on him. Hani alak habibi, mashallah, congratulations, you've done really well. But the kid can't use it, apart from reading in salah. And it is minimizing the Qur'an if your whole goal is to read it in salah. Like it came as a guide to live life by. So the first level is memorization. Entry level, not much of an achievement. Second, after recall, is understanding. To know what they're reading. Third, be able to apply it. And after application is the ability to analyze. You know, which one's better, what do I do, this one or that one. And I'll go to the last one straight. Last one is create. To create. In the classic Muslim system, in our actual pedagogy before we were gifted with this new system that we've inherited, then the actual Islamic educational system, it encouraged the highest order thinking, like analysis, synthesis, creation. I will give certain examples. So important for you to have evidences. So we know from the scriptures, we know from the Qur'an that Allah Rabbul Izzah ordered us to read the Qur'an and to contemplate on it. Simple reading by itself is not what is given. Reading with contemplation is what was the murad. بدليل كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته. A blessed book given to you so that you could think and ponder and reflect on its verses. What did Allah want? So when the ashab read and you read, Uthman ibn Affan used to finish the whole Qur'an in one night and then some in one rak'ah and so on. They read with contemplation. They were very deep in the Qur'an. We do the same but without the contemplation. You know, we just read. But their language, their poetry, they knew the language. So they went very deep. I'll give an example, you see. In the time of Uthman ibn Affan, a lady got married, and 6 months later she gave birth. I'm just looking to see when the penny will drop. You can actually see a mathematical problem there, because normal 9-month period of pregnancy is over. So society said, 3 months must have happened before the marriage. So charged her with adultery. And she was going to get the punishment for it, and the case went to Ali ibn Abi Talib. So Ali radiallahu anhu said, no, this is within range. Based on verses from the same Qur'an that you read and yet it hasn't, you won't be able to solve the problem. So I'll give you the verses, think about it. So Ali ibn Abi Talib says, Allah Rabbul Izzah says, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شَهْرًا. Allah Rabbul Izzah says, and the carrying of the child as in pregnancy, and the weaning of them as in suckling, the breastfeeding, altogether 30 months. And then the other verse says, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ. And mothers are to breastfeed their children, or will breastfeed their children for 2 consecutive years. So he used these 2 verses to say this is fine. I'll let you think about it. Have you figured it out? MashaAllah. So he said the breastfeeding part, 2 years is 24 months. The breastfeeding and pregnancy together 30. So 24 minus 30, minimum period of pregnancy recognized by the Qur'an 6 months. So it's within range. So it's not a double. Do you see, to find the verses and then link the verses and then change it to a mathematical equation and plus and minus, it requires high order thinking. And we have a lot of problems on reality which we need to solve. Your children will need to solve. You might or mightn't be there. You need to develop their capacity to think. One more example on the same notion, I'll end with this. This is it, inshallah. So Amr ibn al-As is one of the companions of the Prophet. And notice the Prophet trained these individuals. So in the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, a plague broke out. You know, people were dying, falling like fleas. And Umar ibn al-Khattab is busy with administration, so he sent a note to Amr. He says, Amr, look into this matter of this plague, deal with it. So Amr says, فَنَظَرْتُ فِيهِ. I looked at it, I assessed it, analyzed it, synthesized it, and I realized that the disease is transferred in areas of population. So it needs person-to-person contact for it to go. So Amr sent a decree the next day, everyone move away from everyone until further notice. Go to the caves, go to the mountains, move away from people until further notice. So everyone went away. Those that were infected, died off because it was incurable, and all the carriers died. No one else had it. A few days later, there was no one dying. People came back, the problem was solved. Do you see, if it happened today, the World Health Organization would have a problem dealing with it, yet the students of the Prophet were high order thinkers, able to think through problems and find solutions using the guidance that they were given. So make your children high order thinkers. It's been a pleasure being with you. May the one above the heavens guide and guide you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.